All right, everyone, it's time to analyze the leftists a little bit because as someone who is at least marginally, in some ways, related to the left back, more than a decade ago, back when the left was, generally speaking, left or liberaldom was about opposing the Iraq War, opposing government surveillance, opposing the police state, surveillance and things like that, opposing, big government, essentially. It was almost like what you could loosely term vaguely a left libertarian movement, at least socially libertarian, like government is the problem. They're the pigs. They're the war pigs. They're the ones that are shooting at you and stealing from you. Why should we be giving them more resources and shit? We would rather help the poor. The left has completely abandoned those principles, sort of the millennial left principles of the 2000s. Now, they're completely different. By and large, there's a bunch of disingenuous arguments for systems that either tend towards or are inherently autocratic. So you have people dabbling with National Bolshevism, outright communism of its various variants, socialism in the general sense, systems that rely upon strong centralized government. So instead, it's sort of like when the hippie movement morphed into the latter-day left and went from turn on, tune in, drop out. The government is the problem. They're the ones that caused the war. They're the ones that caused MAD. They're the ones that caused everything. Let's go out in the woods and smoke weed. Leave us alone. We want to have communes. Not communism, but communal living that was semi-separate from society. The idea of differing from society. Hating the establishment and its ways so much you say fuck it. That was what the left was then. Not long after, due in part to hard drug usage, and also opportunistic grifters, it morphs into something that's basically, we'll give the state more power through a political party to give people more welfare. This political party talks a big game about not wanting to bomb as many people, so that's leftism now. I see the same fucking shit happening now. Essentially, you had basically around maybe 2006 and 7 and stuff, you had almost like a summer of love feeling in some cases. I remember when I was at UVM, there were anti-war marches, and this is years into the Iraq War, by the way. There were like literal hippies with drums and signs and shit marching down the street. Multiple occasions. And by the way, it wasn't just UVM kids that were smoking weed and saying, yeah, power to the people, John Lennon shirts. It was considerably more than that. You don't see that now. Now you see them saying, well, we want incrementally more. We want UBI. We want the government to literally equalize society while using bureaucrats and siphoning wealth in order to do so. We want a political party that is literally run by a person who has never voted against a war, to my knowledge. And a VP candidate who's, one of the most prolific police state tough-on-crimers in history. That's what the left has become. And I know that some of these people, they're more reluctant about it, but they're operating through a political construct that is inevitably neoliberal in form and hoping for a different result. Essentially, they were Johnny Rotten, and now they're Billie Joe Armstrong. They were the punk that didn't sell out, like the cool one, who obviously makes less money and, drinks himself half to death and now, maybe looks kind of, it looks more like a North FC meme at this point, but didn't sell out, doesn't give a fuck, tells the MSM's journos that they're cunts and stuff like that, and says and does weird shit like, the dude, before this last election was on his balcony in a Trump shirt, and people are like, oh my god, and then you're supposed to be a punk, you're wearing the symbol of fascism, and it's like, he's laughing at you, he's trolling you. And that's sort of like the whole idea of real punk, in a nutshell. Sort of like a G.G. Allin thing. G.G. Allin would sit there, singing songs in praise of the Third Reich, practically. You think of Seth Putnam or something. I know technically, grindcore's not punk. Well, it is. But then you have like a Billie Joe Armstrong, it's like you've completely sold out, you make like mall punk now. It's basically, and by the way, he looks like that other dude. Who's that pundit with the big head, and I can never remember his name. Kirk, I think something or other. And he looks like Billie Joe Armstrong, except Billie Joe Armstrong has eyeshadow on. Sort of a big bloated head, little beady eyes, and it's just kind of really funny. But the dude sold out. And he doesn't really do punk anymore. He just does, he goes in to his staff meeting and says, well, what are the top 10 ideas that I can sing about this year to maximize album sales? That's basically what it's about. And there are so many grift leftists that operate the same way, right? All they do is they try to be the most purely edgy and left-ish of the leftists in order to get more attention and therefore more super chats or more merch sales or something. The funny part is they're engaging on what they would claim is supposedly capitalistic platforms through a process of extreme, in the sense of the internet, the most extreme laissez-faire that you can actually achieve on platforms owned by billionaires that they claim to hate, with their crapple products that are partially the result of slave labor in the private sector of China insofar as it exists. Semi-private because it's still government licensed, but if you can get into that sweet spot, the government will leave you alone as long as you praise communism enough. And as long as you don't rape too many workers, you make too much of a problem. 10 in one day is too many. Keep it to 2 or 3. It's sort of like the government will give you cigarettes. You can smoke a pack a day, just don't smoke 3 packs because then it's a problem. That's basically how China operates towards its wealthy, elite investing class. But yeah, the left is sold out completely. Why do you think I sort of left that shit behind? My views ultimately didn't change. They have more in common with that sort of basic concept from back then, with the exception of the fact that things like UBI I'm capable of seeing through because I don't think they would actually help people. If I want to help the poor, I want less government. It's ironic that if you really want to help the poor and working classes, if you want to uplift the lower classes, if you want to equalize them more with the bourgeoisie, if you want the 1%ers to be brought to heel more, you have to abolish vertical monopolies and heavy bureaucratic regulations and all of the other shit in society by getting rid of large chunks of government and corporate power. The latter following the former. Of course, their vertical monopolies are guaranteed by government interventionism. It's the only reason that they exist. Essentially, if you want to help the poor, you need a hyper-free market, something much more capitalistic than anything we've got in the world today. You can take care of welfare on the side more easily if you do that. You'll have a lot fewer people that need welfare because society will be uplifted. In times where we've had far less regulation, those are the times that have uplifted human society. The Industrial Revolution was largely fomented, I know initially. Technically, it takes hold in Europe. But it begins to take much more hold in the United States, specifically because the licensing, regulatory, and copyright process, especially in the territories, was so much less. It simply spurs more growth. That's how you uplift people. And the left doesn't understand this, because and a large part of it is laziness. It's decadence. I'll tell you what happens. When people are very young, like the millennials were when they were kind of hippie-ish, or like the hippies themselves, like the boomers, they're much more activistic. They've got more energy. They've got more time to protest and throw rocks and things like that. They get a little bit older and they start wanting someone else to do it for them. So they turn to Big Daddy government because it's convenient. And then they want to give the government more power and they completely sell out. Yeah, that's what's happened with all the grift leftists, the breadliners and the cringe fringers and all the others, including most of the trust funders and Antifa. They don't even realize that the wealth that they do enjoy and the fact that they don't have to flip burgers for a living unless they're, drugged off their ass all the time, which is a small proportion of Antifa, is due to capitalism. It's ironically in part due to billionaires, although they're starting to corrupt things worse and worse. And that's not the result of too little government. It's not the result of, the government is just run by the wrong people. No, it's the function of the government itself existing at too high a level. But the left won't understand this now. They want more censorship and regulations and stupid bullshit like that. That's about all. Peace out.